Why? Hey, what's going on? I'm Chase. You're watching TCG Bulk Kings, where every card has value. And one of the ways I've been wanting to see about trying to extract some of that value for a long time is to pick up a document scanner I can use to scan cards. So this here is the ScanSnap S1500. That's the one I have settled on, and I want to go into first a little bit of context of why I decided to pick one up, and then talk about some of the frustrations I've had in dealing with this ancient piece of technology here. To start with, a document scanner like this for scanning cards has been on my radar a little bit for a while. I know lots of people in the sports card world, the sports card slash eBay reselling world, use them for that. There's AI software out there that will identify cards off of the images that you have to help generate eBay listings for you. So I've known about that for a little while, but I have resisted getting too far into those kinds of things for a couple of reasons. One, the prices I was seeing quoted for the software were pretty high, and also the prices for the scanners were really, really high. So if you look at Amazon and type in Fujitsu scanner, because everyone deals with the Fujitsus, they're several $100s for the piece of equipment, just to get the piece of equipment to have in your hands to try it out. And then it's the monthly fee for the software on top of that, which seemed, kind of above where I wanted to be. But I saw a video recently, I think it was a TikTok video, of someone who was using a scanner to scan cards with TCG Player's Quick List software. Now, I did a video, I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that, about Quick List, not too long after I had got into my last office. And I didn't really like the program at the time. I was under the impression, and I was until about a week and a half ago, that you had to use it with a camera setup. You would lay the card down on some surface in front of the camera, and then it would look at the card and then use its software to figure out what card it is and stuff from that. And I tried it out, and I really didn't like it because it seemed like it took 2 or 3 times as long to list things as I was already doing with the pricing tab. Probably great if you've got stuff that you need to list urgently, or it would be if it was actually pretty good at detecting the cards, but I was having a really hard time getting it to work for me. So I had written off Quick List for a long time, but this person was using a scanner with Quick List. And I thought, if a scanner can be dialed in and very certainly almost always detect the cards properly, and so it can identify the cards properly, maybe that bit of headache goes away and it actually speeds up the listing process over using the pricing tab. All the cards still have to be organized the same way as they already are, but it just affects that step of doing the listing where you're taking the cards and working down the pricing tab, typing in how many of each card you have and what price you want to set it at and all that. There was that, and then I'm getting more and more into sports cards and non-sports, non-TCG cards, and so I'm like, okay, maybe I want to get a scanner to see if it works with Quick List. Can I also make this work elsewhere? So I went to look at Card Dealer Pro, which is one of those AI softwares that identifies sports cards, and the subscription prices for smaller levels are really not that high. So it's like $9 to get 500 scans per month. And I thought, if I do 500 scans a month, that's 125 a week. That's 25 a day, 5 days a week. That's something I can do and not be overwhelmed, but still be considerably more output than I'm already doing. And try it out for $9. Really not that big of a deal for me. So I did what I usually do when I'm looking for a piece of electronics. I went to shopgoodwill.com to see if there were any. Well, first I checked the Goodwills around here. I didn't find one. But I went to shopgoodwill.com to see if I could find a decent scanner. Hi, Maya. And I found a couple listings, and I bidded on this one right here because they said they tested it and it turned on. So I was excited about that. It seemed like that means it would come with the cables, or at least the power adapter, and it worked as far as they could tell and everything. So I should be able to get it to work with what I've got. Now, it's the ScanSnap S1500 is very much before the time of most of the other scanners that people use. They were first introduced in 2005, so they're almost 20 years old now. As far as I could tell from looking at descriptions of it, it should work for what I'm trying to do. So I went ahead and bid on it, and I won the auction for $13. It was $16 to get it shipped to me, so less than 30 bucks all in on that. And I wanted to go with an inexpensive one rather than get a newer one for $100 or $200 because, one, I'm pretty risk averse and I didn't know if this was going to work, and I wanted to do it cheaply to kind of be a proof of concept to myself, and if I need to upgrade to a better one later, I can do that, right? They're not going away. Also, I wanted to, this is going to be a huge learning experience. So a lot of the value will be coming from learning, how the machine works, how the QuickList software works, how the Car Dealer Pro software works, all that stuff. And again, if I can learn that stuff cheaply, maybe it's a little bit difficult because I'm using this older equipment, but I probably will learn better from it being a little more difficult than if I just hook it up and it works. So, and thirdly, I wanted to be able to show you guys that, you don't have to outlay $1,000 to start up this business. You can work with a less expensive setup, less than $100 setup, and hopefully get that working for you and get some real good results out of it. So that's what I did. It finally came in. It took about a week for it to ship it in. I think it was in Long Beach or something like that. It was it was shipping during the nationwide blizzard. So, like the path from where it was to here wasn't blocked by snow, but the entire system was being blocked by snow elsewhere. So it was holding everything up. So it took a few days to get here. Now, the first frustration that I had was that it didn't actually come with the power adapter. It did come with the original box. I have that. Open the box. And here's the bit that I expected the cables to be in. Open it up, and it's just a bit of trash that they sent along with it, with no cables. So I got it, I opened it, I cleared space on the desk to hook it up. Like, this is where my shipping supplies all sat before, so now it's the home for this. I got that all cleaned up, ready to go, hooked it or got it to set up, and there was no power cable. By the time I discovered that, it was already late in the evening, so I had to wait until the next day to go and find a universal power cable for it, which I did. Walmart has great universal power cables in the ON brand, ONN. If you ever get a piece of older electronics and it doesn't have a cable, or if you lose your laptop power cable or something like that, it's $20 and it comes with a whole bank of different connectors for different things, and you just plug it in and it works. So that's what I did. I got that and plugged it in and it's working great. I also got a connector cable to go with it. And then I went and downloaded the software for it. Now, I was advised by someone from the Facebook group for QuickList with Fujitsu scanners. If you search that, you'll find it, to get ScanSnap Manager, not ScanSnap Home. It's a little bit older software. See, the reason that these work with QuickList is that once upon a time, TCG Player were developing using scanners with QuickList instead of just the cameras, but they've kind of scrubbed all that from all their literature, and they've removed it, like they've scrapped the project, but it's still built into the program. You just have to use a Fujitsu type scanner or it won't detect it. Like, you can't hook up like a Epson printer to it. It won't pick up. But if you hook up a Fujitsu scanner, it will come up with an option on the QuickList program where you can change it to input from the scanner instead of from the camera. And they recommended the older software that was more friendly with the QuickList program. So I got that. The next frustration I had was cards getting scratched as it goes through it. So once I got it plugged up, I got the software installed, I got it talking to each other, I started running cards through it, and they were coming out scratched. And I was testing it on super inexpensive cards just because I was aware that that might be a problem. I tried several things to mitigate that. I put layers of scotch tape over all the surfaces inside the machine that might scratch it, and it still scratched on it. It just spread it out, so it was more like a scuff than a scratch. And eventually what I did was I found all the surfaces that might scratch up the cards, and I took a sanding block that I already had, but you could use regular sandpaper or a Dremel tool or whatever, and I rounded off all the edges and all the corners everywhere that the cards would slide inside the machine, and that seems to have done the trick for the most part. So I did run a card through it 100 times over and over and over again to see where the scratches would come out, and that let me know which surfaces inside the car or the machine needed to be sanded down. And it took some effort and some trial and error and stuff, but it got that working. Now running cards through several times, still it shows no marks on it at all, which is great. So that was that frustration taken care of. So we fixed the power cable problem, we fixed the cards getting scratched problem. After a couple of days of messing around with it, I noticed the software stopped working. And what I mean by stopped working was it stopped detecting cards correctly. Like, you would run cards through, and Quick List is bad about if you run a card through and it doesn't know what it is, it decides that it's like a checklist card or an old rules tip card or a world championship card or something like that. Or it'll try and read the back of the card instead of the front of the card and freak out. I was getting a whole lot of that instead of like real cards. Not just misdetecting cards as the wrong set or the wrong card name, it's just completely off. Also, Card Dealer Pro, which is the sports card one, it also was identifying cards incorrectly or not identifying them at all. So I eventually figured out that this wasn't an issue with the software or the settings or anything like that. It was an issue with the cards not moving through the machine properly. Well, why is that happening? Goodness. So the issue with that turned out to be that there's several rollers inside the machine. There's a big one at the top that feeds the cards in, and then there's another pair of rollers below that are smaller, and that's what pushes it through the lamps. And then there's another one on the back end that pulls it out of the lamps being the imaging spots. The rollers that are above the lights, I guess they're original. They're 20 years old, very nearly 20 years old, and they're made out of some kind of like gel materials. It's supposed to be soft but also grippy. And they have, over time, I guess something chemically is broken down on those, and they are much more viscous and liquidy than they are supposed to be. So that once they start getting used and those lights underneath them warm up and keep them hot, they tend to melt those rollers slightly. And then when you turn it off, it refreezes, and now they, like, the goo from them has attached the axle that they sit on to the plastic housing around them, so that it doesn't turn, or it turns slowly, or it doesn't turn evenly, or the rollers are the wrong shape, so they're pulling the cards through at an angle, or they're twisting the cards as they move through. And so, if you get a card that's changing direction as it's being scanned linearly, it's going to look like a curved card, which is going to be hard for the AIs to detect. So to fix that, I cut off the edges of those rollers where they were glomming onto the plastic housing and tried it from there. That worked for a little bit, but they would still change shape and eventually would touch, and I didn't get all of it off because I'm just using a little box cutter here. I wrapped those rollers in electrical tape, and that works a lot better, but still not great. That stuff inside them still melts out, and I have to cut the axle loose every morning when I get up and start trying to use it again. So I've got new rollers on the way. It looks like they'll be here tomorrow on Friday the 2nd. I'll probably do a little follow-up about that to see if I can get that to work. But yeah, it's been a headache, and I was starting to think, is this really worth it? Is this actually working for me? Is this going to be something that I can get to do? So after I got the rollers covered in tape, it started working a whole lot better. Until I get those rollers in, it really doesn't work very well with putting a bunch of cards in at the same time, but it does do okay with me putting them in one at a time. So I've got some, what year is this? 2019 Topps, just some random Topps rookies cards. Just thought I'd run them through real quick so you can see how it's working. Alright, so I haven't used it in a while today, so it's taking its time getting ready. There it goes. The software, the Scan Snap Manager software, does a pretty good job at auto cropping, but you have to go in and rotate the images if they need rotating, or cut off some edges if they need it cutting off. Now if I had a newer one, there's a program that comes with Card Dealer Pro for managing these scans, but this one works pretty good, and it works with Quick List, so I would have to use this with Quick List anyway. There we go. There's a stack of cards all scanned. No marks on the cards anywhere at all. Now, stuff with a lot more foily surface, like your higher gloss foils, your chrome cards and stuff, and sports cards, they have a little bit harder time going through evenly. Of course, the imaging doesn't pick up the foiling super well sometimes, especially on like Topps Chrome, or like Panini Mosaic cards, that kind of thing. But it just works, right? It works a lot better than the little like receipt printer scanner from 1999 I had been using. It goes a lot faster, and then the AI detectors do most of the rest of the legwork for me. So I'll probably do a video about each one of those at some point in the future, but this one's more about me being frustrated with this machine right here. Yeah, so because of that, I can do 6 to 10 times my eBay output in a day than I had been doing. I had been struggling to get to 5 listings up a day, doing everything by hand. And with this, I've done 25, 50, 100 listings in a day. And so that works a whole lot better. And then the quick list, it works at least as good as what I was already doing with the pricing tab. When it's working great, it works really good. It does still not do great with identifying on foils. It's a little bit harder to keep dialed in so that the AI is working properly, but that's, growing pains that I'll have to deal with before long. It should be super worthwhile, especially once those new rollers come in. I'm hoping that really cleans up the images that I get. I still get the cards, sliding slightly sometimes during their trip through the machine, especially the shinier cards like these that are matte finish on both sides. They are the best ones, especially if they're thinner, to go through completely evenly. I am still having an issue on foils or super shiny or super thick cards where they just don't quite go through cleanly. Hoping the new rollers work better for that than my electrical tape irregularly shaped rollers that aren't working great. So sometimes I end up having to run the cards through several times until I can get an image that I can use. But yeah, if you have any questions or you have any feedback or you have any tips for me or anything like that, feel free to comment. Love to hear all about that. If you like this and want to hear more about this as I'm leveling it up, go ahead and subscribe. get a like to the video so other people can see it. Maybe it'll be useful for them. In the meantime, if you want to check out a video where I talk about all the best ways to ruin your trading card business, then check out this video right up here, or you can look at this one down here to see something else that's probably interesting for you.